Hello. Hey, David. How you doing?
Hi, Ben.
I started fantastically there by immediately mispronouncing your name. I do apologize.
That's all right.
I literally asked you the question. David, you call me David. Stop this.
Yeah,
How you doing? Whatever you can do. Well, it's only up from here, mate. So we're
yeah, it can only get better.
exactly. So do you want to rescue me by
Mm,
introducing yourself? And I'll just sit here and be quiet
yeah,
for a second.
yeah, sure. So,
Fantastic.
for those who don't know me, my name is David Bacci. I'm here in sunny Manchester, UK. I have a very, very long technical career, about 20 years. I used to work for IBM a long time ago. And about 6 years ago, I transitioned to pure data, and I think I found my true passion then. So now I work with Power BI every day. I think I'm the top solution provider for DAX and Power Query and Power BI on Stack Overflow this year. And I should be top all time quite soon. I've recently been asked to be a community representative with Miguel Myers, who's
Cool.
leading the revamp of the core visuals.
Mm.
And I also publish some of my work on LinkedIn, some of my data viz work on there.
Yeah. Also, I've seen your GitHub as well. There's a lot of cool stuff on there as well.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't realize you were also so active on. I mean, obviously, I know your name from vega-lite side, through Dena, but I didn't also
Yeah,
realize you were also so active through Power Query and DAX as well.
yeah, it's funny. The data viz side is obviously it's more visual, so it catches people's eyes. When you put the work out there, it's a lot more difficult to if you try and post great solutions to Power Query problems or DAX.
Yeah,
Far fewer people are interested in it.
that
But
is a
yeah,
very valid point. That's the nature
yeah,
of data viz. You can see it in a night.
yeah,
That's how we know you're doing a good job, right? Because it catches the eye.
exactly, yeah, yeah.
So, you said you've had a long
Mm.
career with tech stuff. You work with IBM.
mm.
So I assume you studied this, and you kind of this is.
No, I've actually got a degree in French, of all things. So yeah, about 20 odd years ago, I joined IBM, and they trained me, and then I became a Java enterprise programmer for about 15 years. I worked all over the world. I worked in the US, in Switzerland, Istanbul. Really, really technical stuff that I was working on. And yeah, a few years
Impressive.
ago, I transitioned away from that, and I think I found my true calling with data. Once I'd discovered Power BI,
Sure.
I fell in love with you know,
Was it
so
like sorry to interrupt. Was
no,
it like an intentional transition, or something that you just, as you say, opened it and fell in love with it? Or
it was a so it was the project at the time. They needed somebody to. It was a huge project with a couple of hundred people on there, and and we had lots of data that was being generated, and there was nobody to coerce that data into something meaningful. So the job just fell to me, and yeah, as soon as I found my stride, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
wow.
Before then, I'd had plenty of experience with SQL and stuff, but I think once you get into business intelligence, it's a lot more satisfying, a lot more fulfilling,
I can imagine
rather
that.
than just dealing with databases directly.
Yeah. So, are you also quite much more like customer facing now as well? Do you have more contact with?
Yeah, so my client for the last few years has been Lloyds Bank,
Okay.
and I work with Power BI every day. And here's something interesting for you. So my current report, it's a huge report I've been working on for 6 months. It's got about 150 queries in there, most of it handwritten M. And the figures in there, they amount to £4 billion. So it's a real, it's a real massive, massive report.
And so that report's just published online, and we can all access it, right?
Yeah, not quite, not quite. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's amazing.
it's a big boy.
I was speaking to someone the other day, and I think it's probably conversation comes up pretty frequently. I've literally had nightmares where I make a mistake on a calculation, and because of that, someone makes an incorrect business decision. But
Yeah,
none of my reports have had £4 billion in them.
it's always the way, isn't it? With Power BI, you can get things right 99.99% of the time,
Yeah,
and then if there's one little mistake in there, that's it. You lose credibility. So yeah, I have those same nightmares.
I have to ask her because because I've been talking about high stakes. That's up there.
Yeah,
I was having a conversation recently, and actually, I didn't think we'd be talking about this. I thought we'd be getting straight into vega-lite. So I like that we're
yeah,
doing this. We'll get at that. Don't worry. Um, I find that working in with Power BI is very often completely non-collaborative. So
it is. Yeah,
you have
I agree.
a single person responsible for such a broad range of tasks. Now, on a project like that, I assume, or is that still the case? Based on your experience, had you have to make it like with a 4I principle or something, or
No, it's pretty much me. It's pretty much a solo piece of work. Yeah, it is. It's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? You
it
can't
is
really
right?
work as a team with Power BI. I mean, you could split the data modeling and the Power Query aspect,
Mm,
but yeah, in this particular case, it's just me.
very impressive. That's really
Yeah,
cool. It makes more, or not to say it makes more sense. It makes me feel better about myself now that you're so good at Vega, or I just can't comprehend it. Based on your previous coding experience, I'm like, yeah, okay, that checks out. So,
yeah. Do you know what I find is the most helpful with Vega? So obviously my programming background helps,
mm,
but I find that if you're good with Power Query, it translates to Vega because half of the battle with Vega, so it's grammar of graphics and
mhm.
positioning marks on screen. Half of the battle is getting the data set in the right shape, and that's Power Query 101. Pivoting,
Interesting.
unpivoting, reshaping tables and stuff like that.
That's really interesting
Yeah,
because I always claim that my power query is pretty decent, or my M,
yeah,
I should say, is pretty decent. So
yeah.
maybe I'm either wrong, or I just need to twist to change my thinking a little bit.
If you've got those fundamental skills,
Mm,
for reshaping data and
mm,
transforming it and coercing it into what you want, then
okay.
Vega, half the battle is won.
All right.
Yeah,
Well, I appreciate that change of perspective.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
I think that also Imran was also wanting some of that Vega full fat, as you called it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen some of Imran's work. He does good stuff.
I don't want Vega-lite. I want Vega full fat.
I must admit, my natural preference is for Vega.
Okay,
Vega-lite is just a little bit too limited for me.
that's interesting. Actually, this brings up, excuse me, this brings up a couple of things because I always maintain, I understand that if I'd start on Vega or if I would bet, if I went back, I would probably have that same restriction. I mean, there are a couple of things that the only thing that annoys me with Vega-lite, I think, is the lack of decent jittering,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
with that's quite a restriction.
Yeah.
But other than that, I've always said that for me, Vega is perfectly or is more than enough for quite standard business reporting.
It covers
Whereas,
80% definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and because I do very little else, I've stuck with it. But someone
Yeah.
like yourself, who's obviously very, I mean, you've worked very much in the financial industry. So do you use also Dena Vega Lite in those reports as well?
I do, but I am selective when I choose to use it. I do try to use the native visuals for most of my
Mm.
work just
Okay.
because it makes for an easier life. The thing with Vega is it does take time to create anything,
Mm.
and it's whether you can spare that time to create something custom and bespoke
Yeah.
when your time could be better spent, doing
Yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah.
So
Very true.
yeah, I am selective about it.
Yeah, I mean, for generally, I also say like if you want a bar chart, you're not going to
Mm.
use Dena.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
Unless it's a client that's giving you lots of money and lots of time, to make the perfect report, which I haven't come
yes,
across yet.
yeah,
Then yeah, you're right. I agree.
yeah, yeah. That sort of client would be very strongly desired. It's
Yeah,
very rare that you get the opportunity to be productive and also creative. It's either one or the other, which is when I spend most of my free time. Um, Developing stuff in Deneb, and then if I create something that I like and I know I can use it, and I can just copy and paste that across, like use a template and stuff,
definitely.
But
Yeah.
for the most part, it's
Yeah, saying that, you can get quite creative with the native visuals. I see
you can,
Kurt's on the chat,
yeah.
and his GitHub is in my favorites.
Oh yeah,
I think he's got like 25 different ways of doing bar charts and
it
25 different
does.
ways of doing line charts, which
That's
I
true,
always use as a
actually.
reference. Yeah,
That's true. That's a good point. That's
yeah,
actually a really valid point. When I first started doing like Power BI stuff, especially like the YouTube channel, I probably did a decent amount on like visual hacks and stuff. But I
mm,
think when I moved across to Deno, I just stopped that because I was like, I don't want. If I can do it this way, I
yeah,
was just like one or the other. My fear was with not with. I mean, not saying what Kurt does or any way hacks. To be honest, I like Kurt, but I've probably overlooked his GitHub a bit. Sorry about that, Kurt. But I've always been worried if I do stuff it's not specifically designed to do. I'm scared that there'll be some kind of update and it just stops working.
yeah.
Whereas at least with Deneb, I know what I create will be there because it's not going to change. That language is just there.
Agree.
It's
Yeah, yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
yeah,
Yeah, I actually did today for the first time in ages. I created something with new with Deneb. I haven't had the chance to do so, and I realized I'd never done anything with it really decent with an arc. I kind of played around with it and stuff, but I'd never had
yeah.
a luck. And it was it was
I,
nice, good fun.
I hope you're fresh with your high school trigonometry.
I am not.
Yeah. That's the thing with Vega, and you have to refresh your memory with all the unit circle and cosine and sine and stuff like that.
There was a lot of Googling involved from my side as
Yeah,
to what these words actually mean. And the worst part is when I get it's just the absolute basics. And I'm like, oh, it's the and I'm like, obviously I'm not talking because I'm thinking to myself, but I'm like, in my head, am I even pronouncing these words correctly? The
yeah.
the theta is that the theta?
Theta, yeah,
The
yeah, yeah,
theta. Okay, I'm like in my
yeah.
head, it's a theta. I'm like,
I
okay,
think you can pronounce it theta as well. Yeah,
okay, we'll see. I'm not sure.
yeah,
A while ago when I was probably like 10 years ago longer, I had a couple of Greek friends who I was very close to them, and they taught me quite a lot of like the Greek alphabet spelling. I can remember, so because trying to remember some of that pronunciation.
yeah.
I'm not sure. But yes, sorry. Just bring up this comment from Daniel because there's a couple of them.
I see we got Daniel as well. Yeah,
Yeah, Daniel's here, man. Of course he's here. Yeah, here it goes. Comment. Common scenario I got approached for. We have this one little problem with the bar chart, and we need a custom visual.
yeah.
And the problem has the best of the bar chart first. Yeah. I think with this sort of thing, even when it's just like a standard bar chart, my problem is if I create something once in Deneb, I really find it really hard to go back to a standard visual or core visual,
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it, because you forget that you can't do certain things.
the power is liberating, isn't it? That's the whole beauty of.
Totally.
I'm teaching a class at work at the moment. Just like an introduction to Deneb,
Nice.
and before we even get to Deneb, I spend 10 minutes on the grammar of graphics.
Cool.
And I contrast that with what's called the tyranny of charts. So it's a phrase that Mike Bostock coined a few years ago. So Mike Bostock is the creator of D3, and D3 is pretty much the visual library on which everything is based, including Vega and Power BI. So anyway, he contrasted the tyranny of charts, which is what you get in Excel or Power BI, where you have a selection of pre-made charts with with configuration options on there. And the trouble is, unless Microsoft have given you the chart that you need or the options that you need, you're never going to have the freedom to build what you want. Whereas with the grammar of graphics, it's more like you're given a Lego set and you're basically set loose. You can then build pretty much anything you can imagine.
Yeah.
And that's liberating. It's so liberating when you when you can bring to the screen what you had in your mind.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, liberating is also the nicest way of putting it. I always just think it makes me go a little bit power mad, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, D3 is amazing, by the way. I started to learn it probably about 6 months ago, but it's classic for me. If I don't have a use case, I don't get very far, It was easy. I mean, I'm not going to say it was easy, by the way. It was easier than I thought.
Yeah, D3 is brilliant, but it's kind of deprecated now. So Mike Bostock has moved on to Plot. So he started the company called Observable.
Absolutely.
And he's got he's basically taken he's taken D3 and just he's planning to make it even better, even more versatile and powerful.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So D4 or something. I'm not sure.
It's called Plot.
Oh, it's called Plot. Okay, fair enough.
It's called Plot. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Easy to remember. Okay, so I'll stop learning D3 and I'll Google Plot and
have a look at it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the warning there, because I would have started to cry if I'd wasted my time. And then
I don't think you waste your time with D3. I mean, it's a very mature API. Yeah,
interesting.
And you'll see in Plot.
Nice. Sorry, I've been coming from some Kurt before. Yeah, like regarding the MacGyvering stuff. You can do this, but should you do this?
Yeah. That sounds like Jurassic Park, doesn't it?
Very true. I like it.
Yeah.
This is true. I often think the same thing when I'm creating, like with vega-lite, and I'm always very careful to say this when I make any video, that I'm just showing you how you can do something. I'm not saying you should do that thing, because when you're given like this toolkit, and you say, okay, now you can kind of put things where you want, you can of course create wonderful things, but you can also create absolute monsters.
Yeah.
Yes.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, we're going through all the classics today. We've got Jurassic Park, we've got Spider-Man. I love it. Yes, the link for Plot. Thank you very much, Daniel. I'll bring that up so people can click on it if they want to. I will do so later for sure. Very cool.
Here's an interesting tidbit. So Jeffrey Heer, who created Vega, was actually the I think he supervised Mike Bostock's PhD, and Mike Bostock is who created D3. So it's all very closely linked.
That's cool, though. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, a little bit of trivia.
Regarding your huge number of contributions on Stack Overflow, correct?
Yeah.
So was it? How did that? Was it something that you decided? Okay, I want to be very proactive there, or was it a case of you learning as you were going and just?
I did it originally for selfish reasons, and it's a good piece of advice you can give to people. So I see a lot of useless advice given out on LinkedIn, but But the question comes up, like, how can I get good at Power BI? And I think I would highly recommend. There's basically a resource out there where people post problems at
Mm,
Stack Overflow, and you can get really good if you're answering like 3 or 4 DAX and Power Query questions every single day. You
mm,
get very good very quickly because you get exposed to so many different
yeah.
problems that you wouldn't otherwise encounter.
Mm,
And then the added benefit is you get the little adrenaline endorphin rush for with helping somebody.
yeah.
People are really grateful for some of the
Mm,
solutions that you give.
yeah.
So yeah,
Fair
and
point.
and then after a while, like anything, yeah, it becomes a little bit addictive.
Yeah. Fair enough. So yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, I should post a link to your Stack Overflow if I can find it somewhere. Ah, yeah, straight away. Fantastic, cool. I shall post that link in the chat somewhere so people can have a look. I have your links all brought up, by the way. I've got
thank you.
your GitHub and what have you. But yeah, regarding answering questions, it makes sense. I mean, my favorite thing to do at work is to answer questions when
Yeah,
people contact you and you say, "Oh, I'm really sorry for bothering you," and I'm like, "Please don't apologize. This is like the most fun part of my job,"
yeah, it's
you know?
fulfilling,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. And yes, you're right about the whole. It's nice to kind of help people and they're grateful for it. But it's just nice to. And also, the best ones, of course, is when you don't have the answer straight away, so you have to go and find out something for yourself and do a bit of research and what have you.
Yeah,
Very
not only
annoying.
that, I tell you, there's another couple of things, which is I'm I'm definitely like there's people on there who within their chosen disciplines are really really good, and you can learn a lot from them from their
Mm,
solutions. And then in addition, there's also a little bit of friendly competition. So like there's a couple of people that provide some brilliant Power Query solutions. There's always a little bit of competition to see who can approach it in the most
mm.
elegant or efficient way.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's a little bit of camaraderie on there too.
That's nice actually, because I mean that makes me think. I mean, I've always kind of like laughed at myself a little bit when I look at SQL BI and their DAX.
Mm,
I love it when they create the calculation and they're like, "Yes, but also we can make this faster."
absolutely, yeah.
And I'm just like, if it works, I'm happy. Okay. I mean, okay, if it takes 10 seconds, then okay, I'll go back and fix it. But that, yeah, but this took 3 seconds and we can get that to two. Or I'm like,
Yeah,
seriously, come on.
yeah. My DAX isn't quite as good as theirs. I don't think it ever will be. I don't think anybody's will be.
No, that's too high
And
a bar, man.
yeah, that's probably a good thing. I don't think I ever want to know as much about DAX as they know.
I love that.
Yeah,
It's just
I'm happy with
actual,
my current level.
yeah, just refusal. It's like, no, that's too much. That's
That's too
excessive.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny actually because you mentioned because obviously we had a call a couple of days ago to kind of test everything works and what have you, and you mentioned then that you were very proactive or
Yeah.
on Stack Overflow, and it wasn't until you said that I was like, oh yeah, actually. I've seen your name so many times on that. I guess maybe that's the first time I saw your name and I searched you and got you on LinkedIn and stuff. Um, but that's also what I like about that as well is because I mean that's kind of out of my usual bubble of how I interact. It's usually like on social media, like Twitter, bit of
Mm.
LinkedIn or what have you. Um, so without that, maybe I would never kind of encountered your work through vega-lite. I kind of saw what you were doing. Of course, learn from you. So thank you, by the
It's
way.
it's 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 interesting. I didn't. It was actually Kerry who suggested I post some of my Vega work because I looked at her work that she publishes,
Yeah.
and I communicated privately with her. Just some experiments that I was doing,
Hmm.
and she was like, "You should really get this, shared with the community." And I think if it wasn't for her prompting it, I probably would have kept all of those experiments to myself.
Oh wow.
So yeah, the social, yeah, it is good to put yourself out there sometimes.
For sure. Yeah. I'm just gonna try and if I can. I'm very bad at talking and copying and pasting links. Your Deneb showcase. That's what I was looking for. And
Yeah.
what I love about this is that well, first of all, it's awesome, but also the fact that it's you can actually see the visual element as well, which is pretty helpful. So this is your Deneb showcase exactly, and people should definitely check that out. Just have a look, and maybe I can actually quickly share my screen as well if that's okay,
Mm,
because I like it so much. 1 second, I'm going to make sure I do it correctly and don't share anything weird. Not to say I've got anything weird on my screen, but
yeah.
you get me.
Okay.
Where you go, and Deneb Showcase, here it is. And bring it up and get, how do I change this? I'm doing a bad job right now. I think I take away the chat and then I don't know what I'm doing. Can people see that okay or not? I'm not sure. Is it too small?
I can see it.
You can see it okay? Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, this, I mean, there's obviously lots of, I'm not going to go through each individual one in depth and stuff, but yeah, it's just a nice, if we're talking about data visualization, it's nice to look at, the heat map is very cool. There's one that for me really stood out because I had it's too small, someone's saying. What if I just take off us for a second? Small. Oh, sorry about this. I'm doing a terrible job. Whatever. It's still on there anyway. You can see it-ish. There was one in particular I want to look at because I first saw this one.
Oh yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
It's really very cool.
It's a bit of a no-no though, using 3D in data viz, but I thought, what the
It
hell? I
is.
had an idea and I thought, why not?
Yeah, yeah. Thank Donald for the very obvious solution of zooming in on screen. I'm so slow sometimes. Yes, it is. I suppose it is. I know using 3D, but this works is quite effective.
Yeah.
It's not over the top.
Sometimes you need something eye-catching, a little bit of pizzazz for your dashboard. And
exactly. No, it's really cool. So yeah, people should check that out because I like the variation on data. So, and this is the thing as well, actually, because I mentioned this briefly before. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I'm doing such a bad job anyway. This is what I mentioned before was the I always had this idea, like, working in with financial data, it kind of was very difficult to ever actually create anything interesting. But because you've connected to lots of different data sets, it's kind of allowed you kind of to stay like very creative as well. I guess more also outside work and stuff.
yeah.
But it's nice to be able to do that. It's nice to be able to kind of go out of your area and kind of play around with the data a little bit, which I suppose is what we have when we use these sort of tools.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things I like about data so much, or data viz. It combines the really technical aspect with the creative side, so you can really express yourself and put yourself out there.
For sure.
That's a good suggestion by Kurt.
I've brought this comment up for Kurt because I think it's a really good idea. Also, I could suggest, I could be totally wrong, perhaps the fact that we don't have something like that for Power BI is a kind of an indication of the lack of enthusiasm, or the lack of what am I looking for? The lack of focus that maybe Microsoft put on the visualization side.
Yeah, so I will be the first to complain about the core visuals. I think they have been neglected for a very long time. They are, they have a lot of limitations and shortcomings. But having seen the work that Miguel Myers has done, he is super, super ambitious with his vision about what he wants to bring to Power BI. And I think I said in a LinkedIn post, if he achieves half of what he's set out to, we're gonna be very happy developers.
So I agree with that, and I've been on this team since I think when it was February maybe, and it's been really great. And he does do fantastic work, and I will never disagree with that. But I think it also needs to come from also the wider Microsoft, not community, but also the Microsoft Power BI side as well. Because if you have one person who's creating fantastic stuff, but to ensure that actual more focus is put on visualization, instead of just saying, okay, we have these visualizations and they're going to be better, and they are going to be better. They're going to be a lot better. There's going to be new visualizations, all this sort of stuff. I'm very happy. It's going to be great. But general focus on the importance of visualization.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
So that idea from Kurt, maybe if it became a thing, it would be. But maybe if it was, maybe it would be limited to core visuals, which is still fine, of course.
Well, this is the problem with Power BI though. So, like the first couple of slides when I'm teaching Deneb is to compare and contrast Tableau with Power BI, and if you take a selection of Power BI dashboards, or if you take a selection of random dashboards, you can immediately tell which ones have been built in Power BI. Yeah, they all have a look and feel,
Yeah.
and that limits creativity. Whereas if you look at Tableau Public, they come up with some crazy stuff, and the
Yes.
reason is because Tableau is implements that grammar of graphics.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely.
So yeah, so unless I think it would have to be a Deneb competition, or unless Miguel brought a custom visual to Power BI that allowed much more creativity.
Yeah. Also, Deneb competition would be a cool idea, by the way.
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay, making a note of that. We could arrange that somehow, I'm sure. Um, thinking of I mean, yes, you're right. Actually, it was quite interesting. Yes, I think there should be categories. That's a good point.
Mm.
That's fair. Custom visual category, standard visual category. Okay, okay, I like it. Cool. Um, what you just said regarding Power BI visualizations was pretty much exactly what my boss said to me when I started at my new company, newish 5 months ago. And yeah, he said, he'd had experience working with companies that use Tableau, and he's said exactly that. You can tell straight away which one's a Power BI,
Yeah,
and in the nicest possible way, he was trying to say they're not as nice, which is I'm not going to
it's
disagree.
true.
It's true.
True.
Yeah, it's fact,
Yeah.
right? One thing that I found really interesting, the difference. This is an odd difference, and maybe you think it's not important, but for me, it's I noticed that with Power BI reports, they rarely go out of the standard screen shape and size.
Mm.
But if you look at something like from Tableau, they use the vertical a lot more.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered, why is that? Is this what's that restriction coming from? Because we could do that, but we don't for some reason.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, I think Tableau attracts more designer type people, if they've got a choice between the two tools. Whereas Power BI is more business type users who are typically building
Mm,
dashboards and reports
mm,
where you don't want anything below the fold, on a
yeah,
screen. You don't want to have to scroll down to look at a dashboard.
yeah,
Whereas, yeah, I think Tableau is more geared towards being able to create
yes.
infographic type visualizations.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's strange if you look at it. I don't want to keep banging on about it. I have
Mm.
to repeat myself a little bit. But if you go to like a website, it's quite often that you have to scroll up and down.
Yeah.
This is pretty intuitive.
Yeah.
So you think it would also be the same in a report, like, oh, I see I have the option there to scroll down, and I will do so, and I see more data. So I'm not sure it's because I mean you're right. It's more business tool. I definitely agree with that for sure, and this is what we're geared to. As I just said myself, like 10 minutes ago, whatever it was, that at work we tend to create very business oriented reports. So this is
Yeah.
what we stick to. But just to like I was thinking, like, if you have a request, you have your visuals, and then someone says, oh, but I want a big table. I'm like, oh, okay, the big table. Just to scroll down the big table, you can't see it, but if you scroll down, there's your big table. Just something like that as well, just to kind of have that flexibility of it's there, but if you want
Mm.
to see it, you scroll down. I don't know.
That's what drill through's for.
uh, yeah, drill
I
drill
I
please.
I have a very standard design philosophy that I try and
Mm,
stick to with my reports,
mm.
and I like inevitably business users always want to see tables and big Frankenstein tables with
Yes.
every single data point in there.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I try and do is, I think I don't think it's anything that nobody else does, but try and have different layers of granularity when you present in your data. So you'd have your KPIs right at the very top, your big headline
Yeah,
numbers
yeah.
that show trends up or down. And then below that, just your charts, which is your second layer of aggregation.
Mhm.
Bar charts do the heavy lifting, but whatever the data visualization is. And then if it's any more granular than that, if it's tabular data, I always
Mm.
hide that away to a drill through report.
Yeah, fair enough.
And that,
Makes
that
sense.
seems to work quite well for me.
I love drill throughs.
Yeah,
I
brilliant.
always maintain they're a very underused feature.
They are.
And I know I'll say it, but I'll say it before you say it. That I know Miguel is working on this as well. He's recognized as something that needs to be improved. But my issue with drill throughs is that they're not. It's not immediately obvious to a user, you know? Like you have the way they work, either you have the hover over, but the hover over, especially with the newer tooltip, you gotta wait just this split second, which is a bit too long, or
Yeah,
you have the button, or there are too many ways of doing it and none are massively intuitive, you
yeah,
know?
I'd agree with that.
So that if there was a way that that could be improved, I would love it because the number of reports or the number of times that when you're giving someone a training, you're making someone understand how Power BI works and stuff, I would just say you see where it could be utilized, but it very rarely is, and it's just it's a
Yeah,
shame. Buttons,
yeah, I'd
bookmarks,
agree with that.
cool stuff. Yeah. Lots of options. I think that we have lots of options, and everyone likes to like just design stuff in a little in their own way, and people tend to design stuff one way, and then that's becomes the way that they do it because it feels comfortable to them,
Mm.
and it feels that they know how to do it, and it's a look and a
It's
feel that
familiar.
they enjoy it. So the assumption is other people enjoy it too, which
Yeah,
quite often is indeed the case. But it's also nice to kind of kick yourself out that comfort zone and kind of try new stuff and design things in different ways and what have you.
yeah, I
Do you
agree.
do you feel that you go through like phases when you design? Like you go through a phase where you like this design, and then you kind of slowly get into another phase of I don't know different styles or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I look at some of the reports I did even 6 months ago with disgust.
Yeah.
You know, you like it becomes a piece of art, doesn't it? And sometimes it's hard to know when you've finished. Like a piece of art is never really finished, is it? You're always touching it up.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
True.
I suppose it's when that inspiration, that that creative inspiration comes as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely go through phases.
Hmm. What phase are you in? Are you in now?
Now I'm in a bit of a weary phase because I'm coming to the end of this very long piece of work.
Okay.
So it's just tweaking at the moment
Ah,
and making
that's it.
sure that the bit that takes the bit that
Yeah.
shouldn't take so long but takes forever.
Yeah.
Um,
No, well.
so yeah, I'm getting a bit weary, but nothing a short break won't sort.
I was gonna say, I think it should be like this thing. If you once you come to the end of a project and all the stakeholders are signed off and everyone's happy with how it works, the person who created the report should be forced to take like 2 weeks off work so that
Definitely.
they don't go through the tweaking phase. You know,
Yeah,
it's maybe the first few days are important, but anything after that, it's just never
yeah,
gonna actually be, as you said, never be perfect, never gonna be finished. And it's like, oh, but what if I did
yeah,
this? What if I did that? And it's painful. It really it is. Ah, nice. Yes, exactly. As Kurt says, never
yeah,
finished, only abandoned. Oh
yeah.
God.
Good point.
Yeah. Have you ever had any big projects that you've been working on and happy with, and then they've been dramatically or tragically underused?
Yeah, um, yeah. That's happened to me. I think
Yeah,
that happens to every Power BI developer, doesn't it?
I
You know,
guess
you
so.
put
Yeah.
you put your heart into a report, and it could give so much value.
Mm,
And user adoption. I think that's the key, actually, is user adoption.
sure.
So there should be in my projects, like learning from experience, there's a dedicated point at the end of every build where we spend time on user adoption. You know, we communicate with the users, we go through workshops with them,
Mm,
we teach them how to use Power BI and how to use that specific report, and then we show them the value it can bring.
yeah.
And I think that's as much as you can do. Like you
Yeah.
can't like bring what's the phrase, a horse to water.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Um,
it can be frustrating.
yeah, it's good you mentioned that about like the step afterwards because I think that there's sometimes this feeling that you finish a report, you finish develop it, the stakeholder has the link, and then that's
Mm,
the end.
yeah,
But like, I feel if you do that, you're missing a vital part of actually encouraging people, and as you said yourself, showing people to say, okay, this is how. Maybe like a call or for me, a live call is better where you show people how it does, or
definitely,
like a video is not as good because people just don't watch it. Um, to show them like what it does, how it does, and if you have questions, contact this person. Because otherwise, you're like, oh, here's the link, and then you
mm,
see after like a week, you look at the report metrics, and it's like, uh-huh,
yeah. That's the worst thing you can do, is just send out a link and say good
yeah.
luck. Yeah, that user adoption phase is critical to success.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, this is actually a good idea from. Sorry, Kurt, I'm really just hammering your comments today. Recurrent things like data cafes and regular user community interaction. Yeah, it's a good point.
yeah,
Also internally, I think we talk about community externally, but also at work as well to ensure there's a good community setup. And a lot of time that they exist, but they're not, again, not very used. So the reports aren't used, the community's not used, and it's just like this
mm,
Teams channel that kind of sits there, which is always pretty unfortunate. But yeah,
yeah.
no, it's a good point. It's a good point. Um, Again, sorry. What do people think about getting too attached to the things they make or their own design preference? Yeah, I can.
I think that's natural, isn't it? You
Yeah,
develop an attachment to things you create.
my I always have to remind myself that when I make something and I like it and I think it works very well, I also have to prepare myself for that someone's going to say, "But this doesn't work."
Do you know what's funny is when I was publishing some of my Vega work, I put some
Mm,
of it on Reddit, and
mm.
one or two of them took off where they got like tens of thousands of votes and thousands of comments.
Damn,
And
cool.
yeah, and it's funny the spectrum of feedback you get. So there
Okay.
was like at one end, people were like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Like,
Hmm.
you know, giving you lots of praise, all the way to the other end with people saying you should kill yourself. This is terrible. You've made all these poor decisions. And then obviously with the you know with the bell curve, lots of comments in between.
Yeah,
But it is, you know, I suppose you have to. Uh, I suppose you have to be balanced in how much of that feedback you take on board.
yeah,
You know, obviously
yeah.
you can't listen to only good feedback, and you can't ignore all the bad feedback, but
Mm.
there's a balance that is required there.
You get rid of the top and bottom 5%, right,
Yeah,
and just keep the
yeah,
rest.
somewhere in the middle is going to be all right.
Yeah, true. Actually, I think Daniel Marshpatrick, he mentioned to me a couple of days ago that you were also had a lot of stuff on Reddit as well, and I said, "Oh, cool, that's amazing. I'll check it out." And of course, it's me, so I like immediately forgot to do that.
Yeah,
It's a shame because if there's these things that you mentioned, if I'd found the links, I could have posted them here as well.
yeah,
Um, yeah. I'll find them at some point and I'll post them on some form of social media or in the comment, not the comments in the description of the video. I'll try my best, mate.
no worries.
Um,
No
but you're
worries.
active in so many places; it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, I'm not really active on Reddit. It's a bit, it's difficult. You can't really keep up with thousands of comments.
Yeah,
So I just post the occasional thing when I've done something that I think's worth sharing,
yeah.
or
I
it's topical. I think the last big one I did was was it the bank failure? There was a
Yes,
bank
saw this
failure
one.
in the US.
Yeah,
Uh,
saw that one. Very
so
cool.
yeah, so I put that on there. I think that got a bit of traction.
That makes sense. Actually, make it like a topical subject, so that's in the
Yeah.
news. Get the data. Yeah,
Mm.
good point. Good call. With Reddit, I tried, but I never. I think at one point I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna be active on Reddit," and then I
It's
immediately
yeah,
wasn't.
it's hard work, Reddit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just actually, I think I just find it difficult to commit to a lot of things. Like I did the same thing about 3 months ago. I was like, I'm going to be really active on. I'm going to like get my GitHub set up, and I'm going to put something on like a Deneb or vega-lite every day. And I think I did about 10 in the past 3 months, to be honest. So
Yeah.
I immediately fell. I have it; it exists, and it slowly grows, but not as fast as I wanted it to grow, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's just there's lots of different places and different things and different responsibilities and what have you. So ideally, at some point, I would have a nice large GitHub repo, but probably
Yeah.
not.
I mean, there's stuff I do every day which I think would be worth sharing, but having the time to dedicate to packaging that up in a form that you can share it with other people.
Hmm.
I mean, it takes time and effort to do all that,
Yeah,
and yeah,
yeah.
like we've got day jobs, haven't we?
Well, you got a very important one, but all that money in that one report, mate.
Yeah,
So I would definitely
yeah,
think you should focus on that.
yeah.
Class.
As a big boy.
Do you have any plans to? I mean, or have you already done it? So like you're doing like I don't know, so talking about this sort of thing at conferences or user groups and stuff. Because actually, at the very start, Daniel mentioned that he was at the user group in Manchester. I forgot to bring this comment up.
Mm.
You didn't know that you were based in
I didn't
Manchester.
know. Yeah, I didn't know he was at the at that user group. Otherwise, I'd have gone down and said hello.
That would have been cool. Would have
In
been cool.
fact, yeah, thanked him for Deneb in person, bought him a beer, a real
Yeah.
beer. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. Cool. But no, like conference and stuff isn't your thing, oh?
Not really. Like I don't mind doing the odd remote thing like this, but
Mm.
I don't know. I can't imagine people really want to hear about anything I've got to say.
I can assure you that's very wrong.
Yeah,
But okay. Yeah. I respect that mentality, but
yeah,
yeah, I'm sure they would. I mean, I think what I love about Deneb is like when I first started using it, there was seemed to be, and I say this with all due respect to Daniel, that it wasn't so widely used.
mm,
And now, if you look on like LinkedIn and stuff, it's obviously a lot more widely used, and there's people commenting and posting about it, learning it, which is really cool. So I think, given
yeah,
your knowledge and people see what you've done, people would listen for sure.
yeah. I answered. I think I'm number one for answering Deneb questions on Stack Overflow. So yeah, and I have noticed a big uptick in those questions.
Yeah.
So adoption is happening.
Yeah, exactly. Right. See, Ben says it, so it's got to be true. People
Thank you.
not want to hear what you're saying. We need to have a talk. Yeah, Ben will sort you out. All right, he'll get in
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah, for sure. Um, are you a top voice for this sort of thing on LinkedIn? Because I find this LinkedIn top voice thing quite funny these days.
I don't think so. Is that
Yeah,
something you
that's
have to do?
I don't know. I think you've got to comment on a certain number of things, but I think they kind of favor long comments that are quite clearly generated by ChatGPT or
Oh
something.
yeah, no, can't be bothered with that.
So you have to include like rocket emojis and stuff. Probably, I have no
Right.
idea how it works, but
No.
you see these things popping up, and it's just mad.
I think I try to only post if I've got something worth talking about. Otherwise, I don't try and post every like 3 days just to keep
No, yeah,
the
for sure.
yeah,
I had that same mentality that I think, okay, I'm not going to say anything unless what I feel I'm going to say is going to bring actual value.
exactly.
And I do that, and I like that I do that, but I also think when you have that mentality, you can also overdo it. That
Mm.
you do have things to say, but because you constantly like question yourself, that you kind of don't say the things that also would have been helpful, even though you think they didn't. Does that make sense? I'm kind of rambling now. I ramble quite a
Yeah,
lot. You get what I'm saying, though,
yeah,
right?
I understand.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for the support there. um, and I think this is also the same thing that I have regarding submitting
Mm.
to conferences. Also, by the way, just bring that from Ben. The call for speakers is open for data groom. That would be cool. Yeah.
I'll have a look. I'll
Have a
see.
look, man. We can meet there. It'll be a good one, you know.
Yeah,
Cover speakers for data groom. Yeah, so you see the cover speakers and you have a look to see, all the text of what they're looking for, and I'm like, really? I could, but do they really care? So I think I'm just saying you can go a bit too far with it, and it's a shame because um, you have something to say, and it's a cool topic, and we need to give more voice to data visualization at conferences, I think.
yeah. There's definitely a few things that I could share, which I don't think I've seen published elsewhere. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
There's an actual fact. I'll give you a preview. I was going to publish on LinkedIn soon. So I've fallen in love recently with SVGs.
okay, nice.
So my my stakeholders, they love tables, and obviously
Mm,
tables look rubbish as tables, but you can really, give them a bit of pep if you put little micro charts in there,
hmm
little bars or donuts or what have you. And one thing I discovered recently is I wanted to put chips in there. So chips are like little buttons
hmm
uh, where it's like a little rounded button with around some text.
hmm
Good, bad, excellent, terrible. They'd all be different colours, but the chip would expand to the size of the text. And the thing is, you can't actually do that in SVG. But what I found is you can actually embed HTML within SVG,
Okay,
and it's not a technique I've seen elsewhere on the web. So I was going to put a little post up to show what you can actually do, how you can create these little things.
that sounds very cool.
Yeah, it is. It is.
See, yeah, see, there
Yeah,
you go. See, I like that. Yeah, yeah, it is cool. Exactly.
yeah.
That's the
Well,
sort.
it's a
That's
cool
the
little
attitude that you need,
technique.
mate.
Yeah, yeah. I've not seen it, and I think people would once they realise it's there. Like who
Yeah,
knows which
and
direction they might take it in.
SVGs are pretty hot at the moment as well.
Brilliant, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a,
So if you
there's a few things I want Miguel to fix about SVGs on the
okay,
table. But if he fixes those, I think, yeah, tables and SVGs can be really powerful.
you have that direct link to Miguel as well now, so you can really get
I,
down his ear about it.
as soon as I make that post, I'm going to include it in the post as well for a little additional pressure.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. Cool. So regarding this, that you mentioned a couple of times that the project with Miguel and stuff, what sort of things are you really hoping to see in the next few months? Not that you think that you will see, but just kind of what are you kind of, if you had
For
a
me,
couple of
for,
things.
for me, I'm not. I'm realistic, so I don't expect to see a complete overhaul of the visuals. I think that's unrealistic. But what I do expect is when you use Power BI every single day, there are so many little niggles and frustrations with the workflow. And
Mm,
if we could get a few of those tidied up, it could save me literally hours and hours a week.
mm,
And one I posted today, which I asked Miguel to sort out, was on the canvas. You know, when you have to move visuals around and you inevitably pick the wrong one and move move a visual you're not supposed to move.
mm,
In PowerPoint, you can right click on a visual and lock it in place. You know, lock
mm,
an individual in place.
mm-hmm.
Um, and you can right click on a visual and you can bring it to the front or send it to the back
Okay.
without
Yeah.
having to go to the ribbon.
Yeah.
And the shortcut keys for that as well. And like that, even though that's not, I can't imagine it's difficult to implement. And I don't think, like, it's not a huge, you know, game-changing feature, but it's a, you know, it's a quality of life feature that would
Yeah.
just help save
Yeah.
people countless hours.
This actually, I like that answer. I mean, it makes sense to bring that in line with other products as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it does. Also,
If you think about Power BI being a design tool,
yeah,
and then you compare it and contrast it to something like Figma,
yeah.
oh my God, like they're so like they're not even like so far behind. It's
But
untrue.
this is exactly what I was saying before, though. They need to see Power BI more like a design tool,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I really don't think they see it that way. I have strong moments sometimes where I think that when, of course, it's been a while now, but sometimes I think they don't understand their own product, or at least when they first released it, they didn't understand what their own product would be used for. It was quite short-sighted in the terms of what people could do with what they want to do with it. Um,
That's why I'm so pleased that they got Miguel on board. So I
mm,
was watching Miguel's YouTube videos before he
mm,
was promoted to product manager, and you could tell immediately, like, this guy, he understands like the basic rules of data visualization.
mm,
He knows what takes something, what you know, what elevates a data viz, and
yeah,
his passion is just, yeah, it's really. I
it is.
think they've chosen the right guy. They just need to give him the resources to do what to
Yeah,
deliver.
yeah, for sure. It's the resources is a big
Yeah.
one. Absolutely. Just bring up Elena's comment there. Anyone who
Yes.
agrees that strongly gets brought up on the screen. That's the rule, basically.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
what's the agreement to?
I think it was regarding your comment regarding how Figma is, because I mean she does a lot. Sorry, Ellen does
All
a lot
right.
of work with Figma,
Yeah.
so I think she was agreeing with your comment that basically Figma was a lot better. But generally speaking, agreeing. So I'll
Yeah.
okay if you bring it
In
agree,
general.
I'll just bring it up. Yeah, yeah.
Fair point.
Um, Also, the movement of the way custom visuals move around the canvas drives me.
You have
It's
to, yeah, you have to select it in a very specific spot, don't you?
You do. And
Yeah.
sometimes the easiest way is actually just to, instead of to moving it, it's just actually to expand it and then, actually like drag the top left.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a nightmare. It's
It's a
like,
bit
how can it
janky.
be? Yeah, how can it work so badly to literally move a visual from here to there? This is like
I
basics.
think, yeah, I can put up with that. The most
Mm,
annoying thing
compatible.
from my perspective is when visuals move of their own accord. You know, if you
Ah,
publish
yeah.
something and it's
Mm,
perfect, pixel perfect,
yeah.
and then you come back to it in a couple of weeks and stuff's moved ever so slightly.
Mm,
That stuff's frustrating.
it is. It is frustrating. I like it when Daniel brings his comments up
Yeah,
because
Daniel knows his stuff, doesn't he?
he does, because I'll think, oh, that's so basic, but then Daniel's like, okay, well, it's not as basic as you think, because
Yeah,
there are very different elements on the page that of core visual. Yeah, yeah. So okay, I'll admit my ignorance and I'll admit defeat, but it still annoys me. Fair?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's true, you know, you do look at stuff and you think, why is it like that? It must be a really easy fix.
Mm.
I had an email conversation this week with Miguel. I said, why can't we explicitly set the width of a bar on a bar chart?
Mm-hmm.
And he sent it to the dev team, and they came back with about 15 reasons why that couldn't happen, and you know, all the technical debt that would have to
Wow.
be remediated to get it working, like get such a simple feature working. You
Yeah.
think, I
Yeah.
just want to set the pixel width on a bar. Can't be that hard.
Yeah. All the bit. The one thing that for me opened my eyes again through using, and then I've been creating more visuals, was understanding how complex like a table or a matrix is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because actually the only visual that I could create with Power BI, that's a core visual, but I create with Deneb or matrices and tables because I think they look so much better with Deneb. But when I first created them, I was like, oh wow, this is actually much more complex than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
Because you just think, okay, it's lines and rows, but then to bring those elements together, and once you actually start having to do the coding and understanding the breakdown of each mark and where they sit, it's like, oh, okay. So
yeah,
I'm still not getting the full picture, but I'm getting a bit more of the smaller picture, and then it's good to have that insight, and it gives you a bit of more
yeah,
understanding and patience.
yeah. I
You
think
know,
that's the word, isn't it? Patience.
patience. They'll say that the P in Power
Good
BI
word.
is for patience, right?
Yeah,
But I maintain it's PBI. Please be impatient. So what are you
yeah,
gonna do? Yeah, but it's nice to kind of have wishes and things to get frustrated about because it kind of inspires you to kind of maybe push and kind of request and learn. There you go. I think. And I'm gonna bring this comment from Daniel. Read it out for the audio version. One of the hardest parts of making visuals generic response accessible for all is one of the hardest challenges developing them. Probably 8% of the work. Yeah, fair enough. So something that I know a little about, but as ever, I'll always respect Daniel's opinion on that because well, he knows so much more than me. Yeah, cool. Mate, it's been almost an hour, and
that went quick.
yeah, it does tend to go pretty quickly.
Yeah,
I appreciate your time for sure,
yeah.
and yeah, it was interesting and fun to talk about
Thanks for having me.
Vega. Vega. Thank you for taking the time. It was cool. I might every now and then, annoy you for some questions about Vega. I will. I
Put
will.
them on Stack Overflow, and then
No,
I get
no.
some points for them.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So I won't be rude and use a direct line. I tell you what, I'll put it on
Yeah,
Stack Overflow and then I'll send you the link. Fair.
yeah. Oh, if it goes on Stack Overflow, I see it within 5 minutes anyway.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
I like it. But also, I'll remember what you said about Vega and think of it like a bit like M in the organization of
If
data.
definitely, if you can get your data in the right shape, then that makes everything downstream so much easier.
Yeah.
Like with
Cool.
Power BI. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, your data modeling is so much easier once your Power Query foundations have been set properly.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Very true. Cool. Then, more wise words to end this with. Thanks again, David. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone in the chat asking the questions.
Yeah, thank you for joining.
Absolutely. I won't be back next week because I'm going on holiday. Woohoo. But I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Goodbye.
Bye.